Trapdoor Software combines perspective-challenging gameplay, artistic aesthetics, and a cute hero for its downloadable title Fez. The puzzle-based platformer challenges gaming conventions, but what is the true value of this game? Beginning with graphics, at first glance, Fez looks like a cross between Tiny Tower and Minecraft. The environments, hazards, and characters are fascinating and easy on the eyes. When shifting perspectives, players are given a glimpse of the true 3D build of each area. However, once the screen flattens, the playfield seems to declare, "What you see is what you get." When Gomez, the player's avatar, is flipped behind objects, he becomes a shadowed silhouette so players don't lose him in the perspective shifts. Finally, in the distance, blurred images of deeper rooms help players gather their bearings. However, the genius of Fez comes in the prologue and finale when the screen seems to glitch out like an old cartridge game, followed by a DOS-styled reboot. Fez proves the artistry of gaming with its familiar yet unique visual style. For as great as the graphics are, the story falls into the typical gaming trap. For some reason, developers believe players need an excuse to have fun, so stories are used in the beginning and forgotten for the rest of the game. In Fez, Gomez is summoned by his grandfather to go on an adventure. This leads to a cutscene where Gomez's simple 2D world is disrupted by a third dimension. After the game resets itself and starts over, Gomez wears a fez and his new companion, the mysterious and forgetful Hypercube, appears and calls on the player to save the world. And that's the entirety of the plot. There is a huge potential for more explanation into the dangers of the third dimension, and the game alludes to these ideas, but the rest of the storytelling in the game is nothing more than a push from the Hypercube for the player to finish the game as quickly as possible. Even the finale refuses to finish the story, just ending the game in an explosion of color and sound. The game would have done so much better to skip the story entirely and just throw players right into the experience. And throwing a player right into the experience would not be a problem, as the controls are simple and fluid. Most of the game revolves around running, jumping, and rotating the perspective. While the stages are built in 3D, the game is played in 2D. Flipping the perspective allows players to reach new areas and collect cubes or treasures. Gomez collects small gold cubes in eighths to create a larger golden cube. However, the game hides 32 blue anti-cubes, which can be used in place of the gold cubes. The game wants players to find all 64 cubes and makes this clear through achievements and even a scorecard moment in the finale. On top of the cubes, players can find treasure maps which display one perspective of one of the many areas and reveals hidden platforms or doorways. However, these maps are a puzzle in themselves, making discovery even more satisfying. Beyond treasure maps, players can find 4 artifacts and 13 owls, neither of which is immediately understood. As players find new worlds and collect cubes, the main hubs of these areas contain a warp cube to lead them back to other hubs. This is incredibly helpful as the Hypercube constantly pressures the player to finish the game. Fortunately, beating the game leads to a new Game Plus feature allowing players to keep going with the use of one more camera perspective. Although there is no combat, the game increases its difficulty by adding character-killing black holes to the stages, demanding more precise platforming. Fez feels like a game that attempts to develop players into completionists, as every puzzle solved and cube collected is deeply satisfying. The weakest element of the gameplay is the premise itself. Fez is built completely around a gimmick, and too much gameplay becomes boring. To combat this, interested players should play in half-hour intervals. This way, the game continues to feel fresh despite repetitive gameplay mechanics. So what we're left with is an interesting and visually appealing gimmick with a shallow story. However, the stress-free gameplay and sheer size will cause players to come back again and again. For the amount of content, Fez is easily worth $20. The Xbox Live Arcade sells Fez for 800 Microsoft points or $10, a steal for the amount of gameplay and fun players will experience.